So it has occurred to me that the main reason I was like, oh, I should do that video, is because in my head, I am a nerd who does not follow sports, and therefore I'm really well placed to explain why the Super Bowl is exciting to nerds who don't follow sports. But the fact that I'm doing this video may mean that I am in fact just a sports jock. So this may in fact be entirely uninteresting. But never mind, it won't be any different to anything else I ever say. And also, I don't have a script or anything, and I'm not going to edit this, because I already have to edit a podcast, and that takes far too much time. So, this is going to be very rough, but anyway, let me finish my coffee. Creaky chair. Squeak, creak, creak. Okay. Right. Okay. Let's start. So, the Greek poet Hesiod wrote an epic work called the Theogony, which detailed the genealogy of the gods. And in the Theogony, he depicted something called the Titanomachy, which was the war between the old gods, the Titans, and the new gods, the Olympians. And this isn't a video about Greek myth, so I know that that is simplifying things, and I don't care. Chthonic gods were also involved and aren't necessarily identified with the Olympian gods. Don't care. The point is that the Titanomachy, the war between the old gods and the new, would later become the subject of the poem Hyperion by John Keats. Indeed, Keats would never finish that poem, and he would attempt later to make a second run at it, which he also didn't finish before he died. Then, hundreds of years later, hundreds of years? Yeah, hundreds is right. The writer Dan Simmons would write a novel called Hyperion, technically speaking 2 novels, which featured a robot who thought he was John Keats, which also dealt with a war between an old god and a new god. Although you have to get quite a long way in before you actually realise that's what it's about. It's quite a strange novel. The point being that the war between the old gods and the new gods is literally like one of the oldest stories in the world, right? And Super Bowl 55 is the NFL version of the Titanomachy. That's how I'm going to try and sell this. So, first of all, I should briefly explain what the Super Bowl is. And, okay, so like you can sum it up in one word, well, one sentence really. Like, the Super Bowl is like the finals, okay? Like, the NFL season, this is the final game, this one decides the winner. But in a little more detail, this bit might be boring, not because it's sports, but because it's combinatorial mathematics. But I really, really love it. So, this bit you can skip, but if you like spreadsheets and stuff, this is so good. The NFL has 2 championships, the AFC and the NFC. Each of those contains 16 teams, broken down into 4 divisions, North, East, South and West. It doesn't quite correspond to their geographical positions on the map. Just sort of vaguely the idea, but they're basically just names. Okay, so 4 divisions of 4 teams make up 1 championship, and there are 2 championships, 32 teams overall. There is then a 17-week season, but every team has 1 week in the season to rest, a bye week where they don't play. Okay? So every team is going to play 16 games. And there's this beautiful, like, combinatorial system, which I won't go into the specifics, but basically they figure out, because each team plays 16 games, but there's 31 other teams, so not everybody plays everyone every year. They have this incredibly beautiful system of matching up the teams each year in such a way that they ensure that, like, every team plays every team in their division twice a year, and every team in their championship, like, I think twice every other year, or so, I can't remember exactly. And it's so beautiful. Like, if you like combinatorics, you should look up how the NFL schedule is composed, because it's just this marvelous piece of, like, project management. Anyway, at the end of the season, the top team in each division of each championship go through to the playoffs. So that's 8 teams. Additionally, of the remaining teams in each championship, normally speaking, the best remaining team goes through. This year, the 2 best remaining teams went through to make up for the fact that teams might be more affected by COVID and there may be more randomness, and so to make it a bit fairer. So then in the first week, the best team from each championship gets a week off. Normally, it would be the 2 best teams, but because there was an extra team in the playoffs this year, it's only the best team. It's annoying that 2020, the year when I decide to explain this to people, is the year when things aren't orthodox, whatever. The AFC teams play each other, and if you lose, you're just out. And the NFC teams play each other, and if they lose, they're just out. So then you go forwards a week. Now there is 4 teams remaining in each championship. So 2 games in each championship. Now there's only 2 teams remaining. They play each other, and now there's only 1 team remaining in each championship. And when they play each other, after a week's rest, that's the Super Bowl. Okay. That bit might have been boring, but I wanted to talk about it because as a, like, stats and combinatorics nerd, the way the schedule is designed is so nice. Okay. The team, right. The Super Bowl, like the NFL, is just not like normal sports in many, many ways. Many, many ways. It's a very strange game, and I love it a lot. And it's the only sport that I have any interest in. But this Super Bowl in particular is really exciting because of who is playing. The team from the AFC, who is in the Super Bowl, is the Kansas City Chiefs. The team from the NFC is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the main reason this is exciting is because of the quarterbacks of those 2 teams. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, their quarterback is Tom Brady. Incredibly reductive sentence. The quarterback is the most important player on the team. I don't want to get into lots of specifics here. That sentence is very reductive, but just for the sake of understanding, the quarterback is kind of what the whole team revolves around. So, the quarterback for the Buccaneers is Tom Brady. Tom Brady is 43 years old in a game where most players are in their 20s. He has been playing for 21 years. you do not play for 21 years. Well, you just don't. Because after 21 years, your skills have dropped off the cliff, right? So to still be playing after 21 years, how high did your skills have to be when you started to still be good enough? Well, in Tom Brady's case, they've never hit a cliff. Okay, now, Tom Brady now is not as good as, like, at his peak. He's past his prime. He's still better than almost every quarterback in the NFL. He is widely heralded as the GOAT, the greatest of all time quarterback in NFL history. At this point, I could throw so many statistics at you, and it would be like you can't pick any one. That just 21 years, right? 21 years where every single one of those 21 years he has been one of the best quarterbacks in the game. I will just show you. Right, okay. I can't show you because of my setup. But suffice to say, the Wikipedia page for Tom Brady, the section on his all-time records, is too big to fit on my screen twice over. He's ridiculous. But he's 43. He is going to retire soon. Maybe not this year, but soon. It's highly unlikely he will play in another Super Bowl. So he is the greatest of all time at the end of his legend. And he's in a Super Bowl. Like the perfect end to the career. He's not going out with a whimper. His career, this is like the highest stage on which to end the story, right? Of note, in those 21 years he's been playing, he's been to the Super Bowl 9 times already, and he's won 6 of them. That's 2/3 of them. That is, incidentally, one of his many, many records, in case you hadn't guessed. That is a preposterously large number. That is more Super Bowls than the entire length of career of some quarterbacks. That's Tom Brady. Meanwhile, on the other side, the quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs is Patrick Mahomes, who is 24 years old. He's been playing for 4 years, and for the first of those years, he was a backup, didn't really play. He's only really played 3 years in the NFL. Excuse me. It is very hard to explain. Like, I'm going to try and convey to you how remarkable Patrick Mahomes is. He's not just a remarkable football player. He is just remarkable as a human being. Like, he is just built as a, like, freak of nature. And to be clear, by the way, that I may not have drilled this home, and it's not necessarily obvious. Quarterbacks need to be incredibly intelligent and incredibly fast in thinking. It's not just about physical fitness, and some of the best, to be the very best, obviously you want to have the very best fitness, but a lot of quarterbacking is a mental game. So this isn't just a case of being born with the luck of the draw in your body. That isn't actually enough to be a good quarterback. The mental calculations required to be a quarterback is like you have to be computing. It's like, imagine playing chess and also computing like missile trajectories. And the trajectories you're computing depend on the position that the chess game is going to be in 4 moves. But you have to do all of your calculations in 3 seconds while setting up to physically be able to make the throw or the handoff of the ball, whilst an army of huge people charge at you to try and knock you over. Like, quarterbacking is truly a kind of remarkable job, and to be able to do it to the level that Patrick Mahomes does it is kind of inexplicable. I guarantee, however good I convey to you he is, you are underestimating. Okay, so Patrick Mahomes has played 3 years of NFL. Like, technically 4, but for one of them he was a backup and just like warming a bench, basically. In Patrick Mahomes' second game of his first real year of play, the 5th time he threw a touchdown, he set a world record. An NFL record, although since NFL is by far the biggest American football game in the world, also a world record. Then he threw a 6th touchdown and broke another record. He was, after that game, awarded the Player of the Week for the 2nd time running. Only one other player in NFL history had ever got a Player of the Week award 2 weeks running. That other guy was Tom Brady. Mahomes did it in his 2nd week playing, not counting the year that he was a backup. By the end of his final game that season, he was the 2nd quarterback in the NFL to throw 5,000 yards. Like, the distance he threw the ball, all added up, 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. 50 of his throws got into the end zone and were caught in the end zone. He was the 2nd player in the entire history of the NFL to do that in his first season. Only 7 players have ever got 5,000 yards in a season, full stop. Now, he has far fewer records than Tom Brady, but Tom Brady has been playing for 17 more years. When Patrick Mahomes has played for as long as Tom Brady, if Patrick Mahomes plays that long, he will be. We can't even imagine what he will go on to be. And in case you're thinking, well, okay, but maybe that was like a freak year. The next year, he put Kansas City in the Super Bowl for the first time in 50 years. That was last year. This year, he's put them back in. So on the one side, there is the old god. There is Tom Brady, the greatest of all time, with a list of records so long I cannot fit it on my 24-inch monitor over 2 screens. And who will probably retire before he sees another Super Bowl. On the other hand, there's Patrick Mahomes, a player who is only at the very beginning of his career and already writing a legend, who is going to be to the next chapter of the game's history what Tom Brady was to the previous chapter. This is the perfect, button handing moment. Now, outside of Super Bowls, where they've not met before, in other games, Brady and Mahomes have met 4 times. And they are 2 for 2. This is the story of the old gods versus the new. This is the absolute perfect narrative. If you were writing this as a movie, this is the Super Bowl you would write. It's incredible. And there are other, fascinating stories outside of the 2 quarterbacks. For example, the best defensive one of the best defensive players in the NFL, who is on Kansas City's defensive team, is Tyrann Mathieu. Now, Tyrann Mathieu originally started playing for the Arizona Cardinals. He had been kicked out of college for drug abuse. I believe it was just cannabis, nothing harder than that. America is somewhat harder about it than we are, I think. But he got hired to the Cardinals by their coach, Bruce Arians, because Bruce Arians saw something in him, and Bruce Arians had himself had a similar something in his past. Not sure exactly what, but a similar experience. So Arians mentored Mathieu, and Mathieu went on to become both one of the best defensive players and also one of the best leaders and mentors himself. Now Mathieu has been traded, and currently he's on the defensive team for Kansas City. He's still one of the best defensive players and leaders in the game. Meanwhile, Bruce Arians no longer coaches the Cardinals. He coaches the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bruce Arians has been trying to retire from the game for about a decade. But he's never won a Super Bowl ring as head coach of a team, and he really wants to. It is the only thing he has ever cared about. He actually quit in 2018. And then at the end of the 2019 season, the Buccaneers offered him a job, and he came back. And he's got to the Super Bowl. And he could finally get the ring that he is so desperate for, that he has not... He's almost physically but unable to stop doing his job. And the person on Kansas City's defensive team trying to stop him getting that ring is Tyrann Mathieu, the player who only got a start in life because Arians mentored him and took a chance on him. That's a great story. You don't have to be into sports for that to be a great story. What else? Is there anything else to say? There's lots else to say, but the video will get long, and I will probably get boring. Oh, the defensive coordinator, that's the coach for the defensive team, Steve Spagnuolo, on the Kansas City Chiefs side. He has coached the defense for Super Bowl teams against Tom Brady twice before. And both times, Brady's team has lost. Remember, Brady's only lost 3 times out of 9 in the Super Bowl, and twice the defense was being coordinated by Steve Spagnuolo, who is now coordinating Kansas City Chiefs defense. One of those games, is one of the most famous games in NFL history, where it looked like Brady was going to win, and at the last moment, the New York Giants first of all, their quarterback, 3 players had hands on him, and he got away from all of them and managed to throw the ball. It was caught. Somebody knocked it out of the receiver's hands, and he managed to secure the ball again by catching it against his helmet and keeping it there until the pass was complete. And this is one of the most famous moments in NFL history. It's called the helmet catch. And it happened in one of Tom Brady's Super Bowls. And it happened under a defense coordinated by Steve Spagnuolo, who is responsible for 2 of Brady's 3 Super Bowl losses. There are so many grudges and interrelations going on here. Like, there's so many great stories, but they're all subplots to the war of the old God and the new, the end of Tom Brady's legend, and the beginning of Patrick Mahomes' legend. And, like, what a perfect way for the one to end and the other to start, than for them to meet each other in a Super Bowl. That's why it's cool. The end.